Australian election. I'm Rachel Jones and this is Kalkinemedia. Time and again, there have been calls for major reforms to the Australian tax system, and with general elections to be held on or before May this year, the call for tax reform could get louder. At present, the Commonwealth and state governments have imposed a mix of direct and indirect taxes on Australians. The most significant forms of taxation include income tax, capital gains tax, and goods and services tax. Other taxes and levies include a Medicare levy and the Medicare levy surcharge, fringe benefits tax, superannuation tax, and the luxury car tax. Most of the proposed reforms point towards introducing higher taxes on capital gains, as well as a surging GST. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development and the International Monetary Fund have also given their recommendations for bringing in progressive reforms to the nation's tax system. Well-researched amendments could play a part in building a sustainable financial base for Australia's economic growth. In its most recent report on Australia's tax system, the Organisation for Economic and Cooperation and Development remarked that comparatively heavy taxation on incomes relative to consumption makes the tax mix less growth-friendly. They stated that there is a need to impose less heavier taxes on income. Rather, more consumption and land taxes should be introduced to allow the necessary labour mobility amid the pandemic in order to boost growth. Also, to reduce pro-cyclability of state budgets, taxes on property transactions should be replaced with a recurrent land tax. The International Monetary Fund has reiterated that Australia must strengthen indirect taxes and lower its relatively high direct taxes. It has suggested that the country should decrease the corporate income tax burden and increase its reliability on goods and services tax revenue to lighten its economic burden. The recommendations made by the global bodies indicate that Australia can fast-track the fortification of its economic pillars if suggested reforms are implemented in the existing tax system. It would escalate its COVID-19 recovery plan and provide the country with firm monetary support. Now, if you like the information in this video, you can like, comment and share it. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also press the bell icon for notifications for our latest videos. I'm Rachel for Kalkinemedia.